Welcome to the Make Your Move Lunch and Learn Wellness Series. At Move Life, our mission is to help you make your move from mindset to momentum. I'm Jason Ibrahim, co-founder and high-performance wellness coach at Move Life, and each episode we will bring you conversations with inspiring guests and wellness experts on our 5 proven wellness principles: movement, mindfulness, nourishment, creativity, and connection. Thank you for tuning in to the Lunch and Learn Wellness Series presented by Move Life. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today, I have a very special guest, Renae Melville, who's going to take some time to connect with me. She has a powerful story, and particularly in light of the circumstances that we've all been in recent times, of course, with COVID being the center of basically the way we live. It has challenged us in many different ways. And one of the things that's really been heightened over this time is taking care of our mental health. And I'm really privileged today to have Renae, who's going to share a little bit about her own journey that she's been on. And I think that you're going to get a lot out of her story. And she's got some great advice to reflect on her own experiences as well as where she is today and how she's been able to turn things around. So let me begin by saying a big warm welcome to you, Renae. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me do this today. I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Amazing, Renae. Well, I think we're all very excited. So maybe, Renae, let's begin by just a little bit of background about yourself. Maybe just tell us what some of your interests are. How do you like to spend your time, just so people can get understanding of a little bit about your personality?
Oh God, I'm a big sport fanatic.
Yeah.
I played cricket for 10 years and I played outdoor field hockey for 5 or 6 years, I think. So definitely a big sports fan, but generally I like to spend my weekends hanging out with friends and anything that involves being outdoors.
Great. So it's something that you love to do. So let's go. Let's just reflect on a little bit about your journey and what you've experienced yourself. Can you describe to us, particularly the last sort of 6 months? I mean, there was a period of time in your life where, in some ways, you were feeling challenged. You went through a difficult time with your own mental health. Can you just talk a little bit about where just your own personal experience, how you found yourself in that place?
Well, my journey really started, I guess, mental health has been something that's been a part of my life for my entire life. But my road to recovery, I guess, started about 1.5 years ago. And the last 6 months has probably been the best 6 months, especially with COVID. I think COVID really gave me an opportunity to actually work on myself and spend time to myself and not rely on being around other people and deflecting my issues. So that's definitely been a big positive in that aspect. But yeah, I think 1.5 years ago, I was probably at one of the darkest places of my life. I had no sense of direction. I didn't really know where I was going, what I was doing. I was hanging around a bad group of people and, I just didn't have any close relationships or anything like that. Whereas now it's done a complete 180. I'm probably in the best place that I am mentally, and it's through all of that hard work that I've had to put in through the use of psychologists and psychiatrists and group therapies and even just sitting with your own emotions and everything like that. So, yeah.
Renae, that's a lot to unpack. So if we can just sort of reflect back in, like you just said, about 1.5 years ago, where you said you found yourself in a dark place. When did you realize that you needed to seek out some help and realize that that what you were feeling, that you needed to go out of yourself to try and get the support that you needed?
I guess it was a bit of a mixture, really. I mean, I didn't have my friends or family. I was living in a very bad environment. There was substance abuse issues. There was all that sort of stuff. And I guess I just woke up one morning and I was like, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I want better for myself. I deserve better. And yeah, it kind of just went from there. I checked myself into a mental health institute for 3 weeks. And that was pretty much the beginning of an amazing road to recovery. I just started working at AMP, and I had a very, very good manager behind me who supported me, and she's still my manager today. So, you know, I had a really good support to get me through that time.
Wow. So again, I'm just trying to, again, just to support those that maybe might be going through a similar experience to what you went through. So just within yourself, you just realize that, like you said, the environment that you were in, the people that you were surrounding yourself with, and just the daily way that you were feeling just wasn't a place that you wanted to be in. Did anyone at that particular time, were you seeking, did you have any friends or family members or anyone around you who were sort of suggesting or guiding you to try and get some extra support that you needed?
My family definitely did try and push that. The relationship was kind of a bit damaged at that point, so there was a lot of pushback on both behalves. Same thing with my good friends that are now back in the picture. A lot of them had to take a step back because I was just in such a toxic environment. It was weighing them down, and it just, yeah, I think that was a big eye opener for me. I had lost all of the good people, and I was cycling through toxic friendships that weren't long term. So I just, yeah, it was one of those things that was like, okay, this is not healthy. This is not a place that I want to be in for the rest of my life.
What was the trigger for you, Renae, that made you realize that things had to change, and for the situation to change, you like, or for things to get better, you had to get better?
There was a big financial impact. I was in a bit of debt, and that debt just kind of kept piling up, and I kept making silly decisions, and I was living week to week, and that was a big factor of it, because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to pay this debt. What's happening? And I found myself just getting more and more depressed every single day. And when you have such a big financial burden, and you feel like you're a burden on your family and friends as well, your lack of worth decreases dramatically. So for me, I was feeling very worthless in myself, and it was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Describe that feeling. Was it just an anxiety that was always around you, where you just, how did it affect your sleep, your appetite, your just day-to-day lifestyle?
Oh, I didn't eat. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't exercising, nothing. It was just, I would wake up in the morning and just not feel anything. Sometimes it was just nothing. And other times you would feel so depressed and you're questioning why you're even here. And it's like, when you kind of get yourself in that cycle, it's very difficult to get out of.
Were your thoughts ever to that point where you got to the point where you felt like, I could go down that path and take your life, or do something that was going to be like to the real detriment to your health?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I guess that was part of the wake up call as well. You know, I've always been a very compassionate person in terms of how everybody else is feeling. And it was kind of like, that was the one thing that kept me holding on, was how would other people feel if I did this? How would other people feel if I made this decision?
It's powerful that you, even at that time where things were so tough for you, you still had that ability to seek out and see the response that would have on the people that you love most. So as a result, you got to that point and you decided that I can't do this on my own. How did you know where to go to next?
I've had those resources before, and I have been in that facility before a couple of years ago as well, when I went through a relationship breakdown. So I kind of already had the resources, and I just knew that that's what I needed to do.
So tell us, I mean, you've already had, like you said, you've had the experience before. Once you decided that you need to return back, so where did you end up going? And just tell us a little bit about the road to recovery. What kind of support did they provide you?
So I went to a mental health clinic called the Hills Clinic in Kellyville. They are a private institute, so if you have private health insurance, great. If not, it's about $30,000. But they have a massive like a massive support network. They have, so you do day-to-day programs. You're there for 3 weeks, and Monday to Friday, it's basically like doing classes, but they do things like martial arts, they do art therapy, they have addiction programs, they do mood classes, and things help you, I guess, realign yourself and figure out what your values are, and then how to deal with distress, like being moments in distress, and how to communicate effectively. And it's a massive learning curve. And then you see a psychiatrist twice a week while you're there as well. You've got 24-hour nursing help as well if needed. So it's honestly a fantastic program. I can't fault it.
Wow. So just to sort of reflect back on that journey, you check yourself into this particular, what is it called, a mental health institution, is it?
Yeah.
And you're in a place where you're carrying a lot of anxiety. You're like you said before, your self-worth is very low. You're just feeling your appetite for life is very much on the not existent. And then that you go on the road to recovery, where you, like you said, you're doing these classes, you're seeing a psychiatrist a couple of times a week. What was some of the key support that you received that slowly started to help you shift your mindset and start to improve your overall mental health and start to show through in your physical health as well?
Honestly, the people there. You meet so many people that are like yourselves and that are going through similar things, and being able to connect and resonate with them on that level, you really help pick each other up. We would have Uber Eats nights where one person would order like $300 worth of Uber Eats, and we would have like a movie night with everybody, or we would sit there and play games, or we would really encourage each other to get through those tough times. Everybody's at a different level, at a different stage of their own healing and their own journey, and it's really nice to be able to share what you're going through with other people.
So, I mean, it's so important. And again, you're indicating in terms of the support network that you have around you, and particularly prior to checking yourself in, the support that you were receiving, they weren't really nurturing you in terms of looking out for your best and what was going to be best in terms of your overall well-being. Whereas all of a sudden you had this realizing that you weren't alone in this experience, and that you had people around you who were there to help you as best they can to start to find your way back. So you said you were there for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How did you start to notice within yourself that you were starting to feel better?
Little things like routine. So getting up, making my bed in the morning. I started, putting together a small routine. I mean, when you're in a place like that, it's quite routine anyway. You've got to be in a certain place at certain times. But it was just little things like waking up that little bit earlier, going, okay, I'm going to make my bed when I first get up. All right, the next day I'm going to make my bed and have a shower. And it's just really trying to get yourself into a good morning routine, because then you're doing it for yourself. No one is going to get better unless you're doing it for yourself. And that's the biggest thing. I think at the beginning, I was doing it for other people, and I was doing it for my family, and I kind of kept hitting a bit of a crossroads because I so desperately wanted the approval from my family. And then it got to a point where I was like, I need to do this for me. And, the relationships that I have, they will work their way back to me. I know that. So really doing it for yourself and recognizing your self-worth and knowing that there's more to life and there's more to you than just staying in bed all day.
It seems like that was a major breakthrough for you.
Massive, huge. Also my appetite too. I mean, when you're in a place like that, they feed you every 2 hours. Like there's so much food. So, you're well fed. And then obviously they do the exercise classes too. So it really tries to get you back into the rhythm of doing things and actually looking after yourself and looking after your body.
So I'm really, and this is an area, of course, that I'm passionate about, this whole mind-body connection. So in terms of the way that we live our lifestyles, in terms of nourishing ourselves, of course, with being a little bit mindful about the way we go about things. So naturally being mindful about what we put into our body to make sure that it's going to nurture our health. Of course, how we move our body can also change our state and make us feel a little bit better. And then, of course, like you mentioned, all the things that we know about in terms of sleep and just the way that our connection with people around us, you've mentioned. Just if you can just tell us a little bit more, when you started to eat a lot more healthier and more regularly, as well as start to be more active in terms of your exercise, what was the correlation between doing that and feeling better?
I guess the energy levels.
Yeah.
Like I would just have more energy and I would wake up and not feel like I'm dragging my feet. It was kind of like I'd wake up and I'm awake. So yeah, I think medication also helped at the time too. They had put me on antidepressants to give me that 20% so then I could start learning. Unfortunately, the downfall to that is you put on weight. So yeah. That was a vicious cycle in itself because, you know, I felt more depressed because I'd put on all of this weight and I've always been quite a small person. So I had to work extra hard to try and lose that. But then after a certain amount of time, I was able to come off that medication and I haven't, touch wood, haven't been on it since. So sometimes it is just saying, hey, I need just that little bit, you know, I need medication to give me that 20% so then I can learn and I can start doing the work myself.
Powerful. So for people who are not necessarily, I mean, everyone's on their own personal journey, and some people have been going through, I mean, the reality is statistics will tell us that 1 in 4 people are dealing with some form of mental illness, anxiety, depression. What would be your advice to people who are going through a difficult time, and whatever it might be? It could be to do with their emotional well-being, their relationships, it could be to do with their finances, it could be to do with something, or it could be a combination of many different things, where, like you described, their energy's low, they're in a state of anxiety, or they're just feeling not happy within themselves. What would be your advice to them?
Start with the little things.
Yeah.
Do the little things for yourself in the mornings. Get up, make your bed, have a coffee, have that time for you. And the second thing would be reach out. There's so many resources available and there's so many people who have experienced similar things. Honestly, if you're struggling, reach out for help. Call a psychiatrist, call a psychologist, you know, have those meetings. And if you can't give yourself the help that you need, then medication is definitely a positive as well. And it's not a forever thing, you know, you can come off it.
Yeah.
It's just get help.
What about for someone who is concerned about someone that, like either a loved one or a colleague or a friend or someone that they know of that just hasn't been responding the way they normally do, what would you say are the things that they should look out for when they're noticing that someone hasn't been sort of displaying the behaviors that they normally do?
Definitely isolation is one. If somebody kind of is withdrawing and isolating themselves, check in. And I guess it's one of those things where you just have to ask the question, are you okay? And if the answer is no, what do you need from me? A lot of the time we fall into a trap where it's like, oh, I'll give you a hug, or here's some advice, rather than us taking a step back and going, what do you need from me? How can I help you? And sometimes it's those questions that go a long way because it makes the other person think and they're like, well, actually, I need to see somebody or I need a friend right now.
That's really powerful. I think that is such great advice, because so often people are reluctant to ask the question because they're not sure about what's the response or what the next question, because if someone says, no, I'm not going very well, they're not sure how to respond. But just by not necessarily having all the answers, but just being there and being willing to do whatever it takes to support that person can go, like you just said, a long, long way. So describe to us, that was, how long ago did you check yourself into that, the mental health institution?
It was August 2020.
Okay. So if we look at from August to now, it's probably been maybe over 6 months or so. How would you describe your overall mental well-being now?
Oh God, it's improved tenfold. My relationships have improved. My health has improved. Everything, my quality of life has just improved. You know, I know where I'm going in my life. I have goals. I have ambitions. And my relationships are just, they've flourished. You know, once I was able to correct the relationship with myself, I was able to slowly start building my relationships. And now I've reconnected with family and with friends, like good friends. And I have a very, very big and very good support network right now.
That's amazing, Renae. It's beautiful to hear. It's incredible. Did you think at that time before August, before you checked yourself in, did you believe that you could get yourself to this place that you are right now?
I knew that I could, but I was obviously very scared because change is scary. And I didn't really know how I was going to get here. And I didn't know how long it was going to take.
And so tell us a little bit about what's the goals and dreams that you have for yourself moving forward?
For me, I really I know that my purpose is to help people.
Yeah.
I love helping people. I love hearing people's stories. And for me, if I can change one person's life or influence one person to get help, then I know that I'm fulfilling that purpose.
Well, no doubt today, in the way that you are sharing your own journey, your own story, I'm sure there's going to be people that are inspired, and you've just given them a sense of direction and a pathway. And so often we think that we need to do everything on our own to try and get through this. And I think it's interesting that for a long time, we gave a lot of attention to people's physical health. So, for example, if someone was showing signs that they'd hurt their foot or their leg, they would go to a doctor and get the right support they needed. And similarly, there wasn't the same sort of attention given to someone who was just struggling. And clearly, that's so important that we understand that people who are dealing with whatever they're going through, just by providing the support and putting them in an environment where they can be encouraged, as you've experienced, and have the right network around them, you can dramatically improve your state and well-being and be in a powerful place that you're in now. What would be, so if you were just from your own personal, you said start small, little things like making your bed. Any other tips that you could give to people who are potentially just not in a good place, or might be struggling, or just feeling like they're withdrawing a little bit, or feeling isolated, or even just their resilience from going through 2 years of COVID lockdowns and all this that we've been through is starting to take its toll? What would be some other advice that you would suggest?
Just check in with yourself. You know, there's always a reason for why we feel the way that we do. And it could be that we're depressed, or it could be other things like, are we tired? Are we getting enough sleep at night? Are we getting a decent quality of sleep? Are we hungry? Because, you know, being hungry is a thing. It's definitely a thing. Are we angry? If so, why? Are we stressed? What's going on? You know, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that, can you change something? If the answer is no, can you influence it? If the answer is still no, then you have to accept it. Acceptance is a massive thing. And if you can accept that there's an issue, or that there's a problem, or that you're feeling a certain way, you're already on the road to recovery.
Well said. That is very, very powerful. Is that one of the big things that you've learnt over recent times?
Massively, yeah.
Yeah. So how would you say your relationship is now with your own family after going through what you've been through and then seeing the light on the other side?
My relationship with my family has definitely gotten a lot better. I think we became a bit stronger after my grandmother passed away in October, the night before we come out of lockdown. And that's really helped me reconnect a lot more with some of my family, but it's definitely a lot stronger now. And even with my friends, it's a lot stronger. I catch up with them, you know, as regularly as I can. I call them at least once a week and check in and make sure that I'm maintaining those relationships.
And relationships, particularly, it's, if there's one thing that we've all come to value more, particularly in the fact that we've had to isolate for such a long period of time. We are human beings that love to connect, and we sort of yearn to be with people. You've got a story about yourself in going through lockdown and being on your own for a period of time. What was another game changer for you that you decided to do that really helped you?
Moving. I was living in Wentworth Point at the time, and because we were under Parramatta LGA, I only had a 5 kilometre radius. I lived by myself, none of my friends or family lived within 5 kilometers. So for a period of 10 weeks, I think it was, I had no face-to-face interaction with anybody. That was definitely difficult, but it was also rewarding because I really had time to work on myself. And then I made the decision, an opportunity come up next door to my best friend. So I made the decision to move next door to her, and it's been really good ever since. And we still have boundaries, obviously, because, you know, she needs her space, I need mine. But that was ultimately a massive game changer for me, because just having that face-to-face interaction with one person meant so much, even if it was going for a walk or having a coffee.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this has been a really powerful exploration of your own journey, and you've given some great advice just from your own experience. Some of the big takeaways that I'm hearing from your story is when you are in a place where you feel like the walls are coming towards you, as always, realize that there is help out there. And I think that's the one thing that people need to understand, that you don't need to do it on your own. The other thing that I loved about is that one thing that you've found that's helped you tremendously is this idea of starting small, the little steps. And I think sometimes we want to turn things around so quickly, and it's hard, even for anyone. It's when you do little things, it can make all the difference. I love what you just said before about acceptance, having that acceptance of when something happens or something shows up in your life, if you can't change it, you've got to accept it. And that can be a big sort of release when you don't feel like you have to do something that's just not going to happen. The other thing that I took away from you was the fact of you checking in with yourself. I think that's so important. As much as we check in with others, but it's like, if you're not checking with yourself on a regular basis and understanding what is it that you need, and how, and like you did with yourself, knowing that being in isolation and making a decision to move closer to your friend has been a big part to the way that you feel. And that last piece is around that whole connection and relationships and support network, knowing that they say that when loneliness has a similar effect on your health like smoking does. So we all need to be connected and feel a sense of self-worth, and having people around you and creating the right environment are so important. Any final advice outside of that you'd like to pass on and share with everyone?
Also, just life's too short to live in disappointment. So if you need help, reach out. There's so many resources out there. There's so many people who are willing to give their help and give their advice. Honestly, reach out. It is life-changing.
Renae, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your story and to share a lot about yourself and be so vulnerable. I know that people who listen to this, there might be something that they can take away to help them, or someone that they know of that might be going through a difficult time. We wish you all the very best. We love seeing the fact that you've got a massive smile on your face, and that, like you described, you're in the most healthiest place that you've been in a long time. And I think that in itself gives everyone hope that even in when life throws you a couple of curveballs, as they say, turn lemons into lemonade and believe that there is greener pastures ahead. So all the very best, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.